I'm John from Two Brothers RC, and I've got a fun topic to chat about today: gyros and the people who use them. It's a controversial topic, so buckle up. Let's begin by addressing what a gyro even is. It's a tool that's either a separate installation or it's integrated into the aircraft receiver. A gyro acts like a basic full-scale flight computer. It senses the trajectory of the aircraft and it corrects deviations caused by wind or from balance. Some gyros include a self-leveling system which newer pilots often use to learn how to fly. This is very common in bind-and-fly aircraft marketed and sold by Horizon Hobby, although you'll find this technology in models from companies like FMS as well. It's a tool and it doesn't fly for you, although you'd think otherwise if you listen to the angry crowd that hates you for using a gyro. There are generally four schools of thought when it comes to gyros. The plane comes with one, so they didn't notice or even know what a gyro was. Pilots who use a gyro to compensate for turbulence and gusty winds. Pilots who use a gyro because they like to fly with a neutral or tail-heavy CG to keep it controllable. Or pilots who think that gyros are bad, you're bad if you use them, and real pilots fly without a gyro. If you're in the first three categories, congratulations, you're just like us. We started flying with a turbo timber and had no idea that it used a gyro, even though it mentioned AS3X all over the box. That's how new we were to RC flight. We also used gyros to compensate for turbulence and make our relaxed stability aircraft, read tail heavy, track straight and stay controllable. There's plenty of legitimate reasons to use a gyro. Nobody needs your permission or approval to fly how they want to fly. If you're that guy who talks down to people because they use a gyro, you're an ass. No, really, if you're that guy, you suck. Trashing gyros and the people who fly them means that you're trashing an entire generation of pilots who buy bind-and-fly models. There's better ways to introduce people to the wonders of model aviation than to make them realize that those wonders are an adult version of high school bathroom arguments, wherein nothing more than rando dudes trying to bro down with you because you're flying in a way that they wouldn't. Rethink your life if treating people like that sounds appealing to you, and if this bothers you, good, because it bothers us when you drive away newcomers from this hobby. That kind of mentality is called gatekeeping. It's the idea that you and only you get to determine who is and is not a real pilot. You see this kind of degenerate behavior when people have lost the ability to be decent, rational folk. Instead of helping people and feeling better about themselves by spreading positivity, they want to spread misery around and act like they're superior to you. And don't think that this is just limited to radio-controlled flight. My wife is a huge knitter, and there's arguments in the knitting community about who is and is not a real knitter. If you use the wrong kind of yarn or the wrong stitch, you're not a real knitter and should go stab your eyes out with your dollar store knitting needles. If you need a hobby to feel superior to other people by gatekeeping it, you're missing the point of the hobby. It's meant to be fun, enjoyable, and accessible to everyone. If your idea of success is based on how much ill will you can generate, we don't want anything to do with you, and we imagine most other people don't either. Which brings us to our next point here. If you've got that kind of attitude, you're one of the reasons why RC flying is declining in popularity. This is basic social science. And you want to know how I know? Because I know that you don't enjoy being around people who genuinely insult you in what you enjoy doing. You probably don't, because most people don't if they have any level of self-respect. All it does is make them think that this hobby is full of cranky jerks. Be better than this. Make people want to fly, not fly away. Hobbies only grow if people take the time to mentor newcomers instead of beating them over the heads by telling them how wrong they are for enjoying what they don't. And no, we're not making any of this up. The kind of person we're describing will inevitably come into the comments to pull a malignant narcissist routine and dismiss everything we're saying by tossing in a bunch of laughing emojis at the end of their comment, as though the more emoji you spam, the less unhinged you sound. Here's an example of the kind of people that we're talking about. These are all actual comments that we collected while researching this video.
If you set the plane up correct, it will fly smooth without a gyro. Gyros are for learners.
Hey, thanks for the quote. This will go into the upcoming video regarding gyros and why people like you have no idea what you're talking about. We'll leave this one up on screen for a few because it's just so incomprehensibly wrong on several levels. This guy seems to be suggesting that FMS, Horizon, Flex, and other companies that sell aircraft with gyros don't know how to set up a plane correctly, as though he's the only authority on what correct actually means. And by his logic, the F-16 full scale wasn't set up correctly because it has several flight computers keeping it stable. Look at this guy's sky.
Because nobody wants to actually learn how to fly with an instructor and just wants to go buy a plane and go to a park and get instant gratification.
Oh no, people want to have fun. Well, Scott recently joined the Fun Police, and he's about to put a stop to that right quick. Like, who do you think you are? You actually thought that this hobby was supposed to be fun? Oh man, you better learn real quick. This hobby is serious business. And if you don't fly the way Scott wants you to fly, you're not a real pilot. There's a consistent pattern here with these comments you're seeing. The most vocal anti-gyro people feel the need to shove the years of experience they have in your face like you're obligated to listen to whatever verbal diarrhea they typed up because they've got X years of experience. As most people who have worked for a living can tell you, years of experience doesn't necessarily mean you actually know what you're talking about, and this is one of those cases where anti-gyro people really don't have a clue. Or maybe people would care about when they learn to fly if every sentence that started with "I learned to fly back in 1498" wasn't just an excuse to start bagging on people who fly differently than they do. And for the record, flying without a gyro does not make you a better pilot. That's literally just your opinion. Literally. We know many extremely skilled pilots who fly with gyros, and they'd laugh in your face for thinking that your unearned smugness means anything at all. And this is what it comes down to right here, this meme. The same people who berate, insult, and otherwise just act like dicks to newcomers are shocked that their beloved hobby is dying. I've known quite a few people whose understanding of flight is that the plane goes fast and that's why it stays in the air, which isn't even really wrong at all. That is aerodynamics in its most simple form, because even a brick will fly with enough thrust, as the old adage goes. If the issue is that beginners don't understand why a model is flying as stable as it does with a gyro, so what? Understanding why something flies is not a requirement to enjoy radio-controlled flight. Beginners probably don't understand why their trainer has wing dihedral either, but nobody claims that you're not learning how to fly with a model that tends to self-level itself due to the design of the wings. So do you need a gyro to fly? Of course not. It's not a requirement and nobody's saying that it is. It's always personal preference. Our friend Zach at Tail Heavy Productions introduced us to the full-scale concept called Technedure, confusing personal technique with official procedure. It's the tendency of a pilot to criticize other pilots because they think their own way of flying is the only valid and accepted way of doing it. There are many ways to approach flight, and all that matters in this hobby is that you're having fun, because fun is what makes people want to stay in a hobby. People don't go into hobbies expecting to be frustrated or pissed off or made fun of. So let's stop doing that and be more welcoming to newcomers, because they're the people ultimately who will carry this hobby forward after we're gone. So how do we suggest using a gyro? If you're flying nose heavy, which a lot of people are, all we would recommend is to set it up to counter the tendency of the aircraft to be disturbed in the roll axis. Turbulence most frequently causes model aircraft to roll. Yaw and pitch gyro control isn't very beneficial on a nose-heavy setup because the aircraft is positively stable and will self-correct those axes in the air. If you're flying neutral or slightly tail-heavy like we prefer to, we'd recommend setting up your gyro to correct moderately for pitch. Most of the instability with a neutral or tail-heavy setup comes from the pitch authority, which increases significantly as the CG shifts further back. We generally recommend minimal roll and yaw gains, but we do use strong pitch gains. This prevents slight control inputs from making the model do a backflip. Wind shear will cause it to rise or sink noticeably, but no gyro can fix that. That's just a consequence of air currents shifting around in the sky. The completely impotent rage these people have about gyros reminds me of Pete Weber after his famous "Who do you think you are? I am!" rant went viral after being heckled by a kid in a bowling tournament. After he was interviewed about the outburst, he said, "Hate me or love me, you watched, and that's all you could do." But that brings me right back to my final point. You don't have to watch people fly with a gyro. In fact, you can just not watch what you don't want to watch. Through this incredibly amazing power called ignoring stuff you don't like, you can simply choose not to be a dick to random people online by telling them that they're not real pilots for flying with a gyro. Or if for some reason you can't help but complain anyhow, just a friendly reminder. Whether you hate me or love me, you watched and decided to complain in the comments below. And that's all you could do. If you're not one of those people who seethe and cope at the sign of another pilot using a gyro, help push back against this kind of snobbery by sharing this vid with your friends and taking a use whatever you like stance, because enjoying yourself should be all that matters, and hobbies should be fun and welcoming to people. Hopefully this will be the last time we talk about this subject. So see you next time with a new upload.